Do not want to be in this area. Now that a win, baby, yeah. Oh, fellas, PB2 Smurf here. I know you missed me a little bit, but listen, it's time for a rancher to get us an upgrade. You see this? Yep. Use this coupon, as you can see right here. Pick this bad boy up for less than, I think it's less than 75 bucks. 2,500 is overkill for ATV. But just like everybody else, the reason why they go with this one is because it has a wireless remote with it. So guess what? We're going to give this bad boy a spin. We're going to put it on there. I want to go over some minor details and things about this specifically that I had questions about that's not answered online. So with that being said, let's get into those details, shall we? Hey fellas, PB2 Smurf here. PB2 Smurf here. PB2 Smurf here. Oh fellas, PB2 Smurf here. Let me start off by saying the specific model number that you'll find, and you'll find this when you look for certain things. It says Badlands Winch 2. It'll say Badlands Winch 2 post mount or 2 screw mount or whatever. It always references this model number. This is on their website too, but just keep it in mind. So there's a lot of unboxings on what this thing comes with. Y'all are more than welcome to look one of those up. My biggest concern was the Fairlead. It's this one. The biggest issue that I've seen online is so the Fairlead from this hole here to this hole over here is the distance. Apparently this one is specifically 4.125, and so the issue is the standard one is 4 7/8 or 4.875, either which way. And so this Fairlead won't mount to a regular winch mount. I guess Warren and the other ones, they actually use the standard mount for some reason. This one does not. So my issue was, okay, well, if I'm going to buy this, wonder if the plate that Badlands sells actually will mount this up. Just so you know, this plate right here, right there's a model number if you want to pause it. But this regular standard winch plate mount, which is here, the Fairlead actually fits on this plate. So if you're going to mount this sucker on a trailer or whatever, you can buy that plate and it'll mount right up. And just for reference, you can see through the box, and you can see the box on this side as well. Let me get over here. See there? So it'll mount to this. I don't know, a 4 7/8. I'd have to measure it to see if the rest fit. But if you want to go that route, you can. But that wasn't specified, and I want to specify that part number does fit that Fairlead that goes with this specific winch. Now I don't know if they're all 4.25 or not, but this one is, and it will fit this plate. I'm also yet again really unsure why they put this plate and all these overall dimensions on here and they don't tell you the distance of any of these holes on any of this stuff. I really don't get that. I mean, you know, it's a cheap product. You're taking a gamble. You can modify it if you want to, but why not put these bolt pattern distances and things on there? So I'm not really sure why they don't, but if you buy one of these, something else that you have to buy is the bolts. So I picked these bolts up from another place. Why they're red is because apparently the store I got them from, the red are 8.8 metric rated in strength, so they're red. Not really sure why. Another thing is her rancher's also red, so I guess it'd match. But just so you know, for our application, if you're putting one of these on a 2018, 2020, or any 420 rancher, in my knowledge, this plate will not work. I'm so sorry. I've done all the figuring for you. Just go ahead and tell you, you're going to have to order the KFI plate. Let's go ahead and start by saying we won't be using this. We may use these, so we'll keep these. If not, they're pretty cheap. We can use them for something. But this is what we're worried about. So let's get this thing on there and ready to go. So your Honda is definitely set up different what mine is. Yours won't have a light on the front of it, whatever. I know you know this. For those who don't, this is just going to be an overview on how to do this. First thing I'm going to do is remove this light. We want to get this front bumper right here, and we want to get it released down because the winch and the winch plate actually mounts right down in this section here. And so we got to get that loose so that way we can fit everything in there. Is it absolutely necessary? I'm really unsure. But for simplicity, I'm just going to go ahead and just pull that down so that way that we have it out of the way. For one, and for two, it'll be easier for me to film to show you all. I'm not going to do a lot of detail. I see a lot of people do these installs, and as they do the install, they really kind of get boring, or the camera's jumping around like this right here, and they're while they're doing it. I don't want to do that. I want to do a good clean install and show y'all how to do this, and we'll make it really quick and simple. Let's remove this right here, and then we'll start with the bolts, and I'll point them out along the way and give you the size of them. Like mine, it's beat up pretty bad. It's pulling Ray out. As I was pulling it out, I bent it pretty bad, and I just bent it back. Probably should replace bank. So we're going to remove this front piece here so it gives better access. Also, so it'll be easier to film. And so that way, just in the event you need to take it off to change it or whatever, you understand how to do this. You have to get this plastic underneath here loose to get this off. In order to get this off right here, get this to lay forward enough for you. Underneath it here is another 10 millimeter, and you take that one loose. As you can tell by these right here, those are all 10 millimeters. See how they got the head on them where they go through the plastic. But if you just take just the side one off and then that first one there, this will lean forward pretty good distance. The reason why that's important, and you want to take this loose at least this far, the 12 right here that we got to get to, and you can't get to it like this in plastic. It has it covered, as you can see. There's a 12 millimeter here. Bolt it runs through with a nut. The nut is not fixated, so you'll have to keep up with the nut. You go down, there's a 10 millimeter that goes through that plastic there. There's also a 12 millimeter that goes right here. That bar goes on the outside, by the way, the one moving. And then down here is a 12. Now you don't have to take that one on the bottom right there, those two loose. You just have to loosen them up to where it'll pivot. And then there's one more, in case you didn't know, and it's right there, and it's a 10. That's as far forward as we need this for our install for our winch. I may have to go a step farther because I bent this pretty bad, and I'm probably going to have to beat it back out. So, cross that bridge we get there. Hopefully you didn't, but if you did, you may have to take that off. All right, fellas, I got to work, forgot to hit the record. So, this is the back of the bumper with KFI winch plate. This is the new Fairlead I had to buy. Bought Rex, matches the ATV. You can buy whatever color you like. The winch have it mounted this way, and so there's what you see. So the KFI plate basically goes, this is the front bumper, and so the front of the plate goes over that. Then as you look at the plate, and I'll show you an image right here. The plate, the side brackets for the side of this, for the plate itself, they go on the outside of these right here. So that was something I struggled with. I don't know if they were on the inside or outside, but the directions, you can barely see it, but they show they go on the outside. I had a little issue because my bumper was bent, as I discussed previously. Then after that, the KFI plate also come with 2 extra small stubby nylon threaded nuts and bolts, and that's what I use to secure this winch in here. So the winch is in here. Everything's hunky-dory at the moment. Fairlead's mounted, tightened down. So now all we got to do is put it back on the ATV in the same orientation, the same way that we took it off. So let me do that, and then I'll pick right back up right there. Let me just tell you, it's a real pain in the butt if your bumper's bent and used like mine. But overall, it's in there. Took a little bit of wrestling, a little fighting. And so the directions say on the KFI to just run these bolts in so it'll pivot up and down like this. However, I found it was easier to just start these bolts right here. Don't tighten them all the way so it'll pivot. And do that on both sides to get them slide in. The hardest thing I had lined up was here, and that's because, you know, the front where it was bent. Ended up using this jack and this piece of wood, getting over here and pushing this up or holding it or moving it, maneuvering it just right to get everything to slide in. Only a modification I had to do, and it's common apparently, this plastic piece that goes right here had to be trimmed to go around the profile of this winch right here. And all I did was just take my pocket knife and just bit off. Now if you want to make it look nice and neat, you can. Just me, that don't really look that bad. Next thing we have to do though now is run our power wire. Now I specifically mounted this winch this way for the main reason of being is I'm going to run the power wire up, mount the remote control box right up there, and then I'm going to run it back along with the frame. So they make an auxiliary wire kit that you can buy, and it actually plugs in under here where we plugged a 12-volt outlet into. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it right up here. But I didn't buy the adapter, should have, but I didn't. By the way, I put this seat on before I ever left the dealership with a side-by-side. Let me tell you what, I recommend this box. I'll find one pretty similar to it, and I'll link it down in the description below. You can take a look at it, but I do recommend this specific box. Also showed you how to take all this stuff apart on the video where I changed the oil. I'll link it right up here for you. So you can wire, I think the auxiliary wire that you buy from Honda wires it in to where it only gets power if the key's on. Well, I'm gonna wire mine to where it gets power key on or off, either one. The ideal is when in a situation, vehicle stops for some reason and I can't get to it and I have to get off and tie the winch up and winch it out. I don't want to get off, jump through mud or whatever, then get back on the four-wheeler after climbing through whatever and realize, oh shoot, I forgot to let the key off. So I'm wiring mine straight to the battery. It'll work regardless. The wiring that comes with this specific winch, it's in one spool basically, and it tells you in the directions how to wire it. But assuming you forgot the directions, clearly states on here, goes to the motor, which is the winch. This goes to the battery. The other black one says battery on it. So you really can't mess this up. Installed it in. Not only did it comes with the boots, also silicone it really good because this is right in the front. So it's going to take on a lot of water and things, and I want to make sure I can keep from corrosion from happening. Installed those. The box here, have the controller plugged in at the moment so we can test it. Then fasten it to one hole up there, and now just zip tied it here. I have some body snaps coming to hold this in place more, but it don't seem to move any, and it's up and out of the way. I could not, I'd have to take, you could take that loose and this body clip loose in order to get the circuit breaker behind this section right here, the fill or the overflow for the radiator. But I just didn't want to, let's be honest. I was just lazy and didn't want to. So I run the negative one that way, the positive one this way. Run it over, zip tied it. I zip tied it right there. Then it comes through, runs up and over, and I run it behind this because that's the four-wheel drive mechanism, so that moves. Now I don't want to take a chance of it rubbing. So I run it behind there. It's above that plastic shielding there, which will keep heat away from it. Zip tied it right there. Run it all the way back. Run it back to here. I run it over. I was able to get this box down in here exactly where I wanted it by moving the starter solenoid off its mount, scooting it over, sliding this in, and sliding it back on. And making the last connection here, which would be to the battery. I realized that the factory screws on this Honda battery, I guess you could say terminal screw, are not the correct length. So since this terminal screw is not long enough, it's a tad bit short, I had to go get a new one. I really couldn't find the size on it. This could vary by battery. As you can see, the difference. The one on the left's the old one on the right's the new one. The size of these are M6 by 1.00, and the new one is a 16, whereas the old one is a 10. And I know that don't seem like much, but that's all I need. But they make these all the way up to like a, instead of a 16, make it up to like a 40. And so right here, I'll show you the Dorman. There's the part number on the bottom left. But that's what you need, and that'll allow you to make these posts just a fuzz longer. Then we made our connection. Now, does it work? So right here, I managed to pull with the Tacoma, drag it where it's at, and I just want it back just a little bit more, you know. That's how that post would be preferred. So I got it rigged up. Run over there to the snatch block, which is over there, snatch block. So we're gonna give her a little try. Also want to touch base real quick. This is the wireless remote that comes with it. In order to use this remote, after it's all wired up, push and hold this on and off button. It says 3 seconds, but I think it takes a little longer than 3 seconds. Watch for this LED indication up here. 1, 2, 3. So about 4 seconds. When you do that, the light's solid. Means your winch is paired with the remote. Oh, guess better turn the freeze spool off. Oh, in case you don't know, and I'm no professional, but they call this a triangle of death. That point to that point. You do not want to be in this area. I mean, you might, but if you do, I take your antidepressants and just think positive thoughts. But don't stand there. Slack pulled out of it. It's moving it. There. There. I'm gonna call that a win. See that post? Good to me. Call that a win, baby. Yeah. So on the aggravating scale, I'm probably gonna give it about a 4, just because it's just minor, small things. Like my front bumper was bent, so being bent, had to beat that out. The winch didn't align right, yada yada. So I'm gonna go with about a 4. Other than that, the install, if you got a new one or the bumper's not bent like mine was, then hey, listen, this thing should bolt right in there and go right in. I do recommend the KFI mount, mainly because it has a good reputation, for one. For two, it just went right on there, didn't have to fabricate anything, and that saves time. Overall, it wasn't really that bad, but the install time, because of me wanting to make sure that I got everything the way I wanted it and it would work in the future and things like that, I would probably say 4 hours. But you know what? She's on there now. But until next time, fellas, remember, your rig, your call.